that's it for the video. Support Nord if you want to support us. Thank you to them for sponsoring. Link will be down below. With that said, let me know what you think.
Yeah, just be careful when you say that, because somebody like me might actually take you seriously. I loathe the idea of defending Blizzard, and Ian has a clueless. But the idea of a well-respected and valued leader of the WoW community, Bellular, shooting his mouth off with a complete disregard for fairness, objectivity, and research is despicable and irresponsible. Maybe I'm wrong for holding Bellular to a high standard in the first place, a journalistic standard. But over the past 2 to 3 years, Bellular's videos greatly served the WoW community as highly informative WoW content, worthy of imitation as well as respect. His videos consistently demonstrated professionalism and a reasonable balance of fandom, objectivity, and fairness, but that's no longer the case. Lately, Bellular has been uploading a relentless barrage of videos with a domino effect of negativity directed at the WoW devs and Blizzard. Do they deserve saltiness from Bellular and other WoW influencers? Yeah, I kind of think they do. But keep in mind, criticism, when administered with fairness and objectivity, is an important ingredient in order to achieve greatness. Prior to BFA, I referred to Bellular as a Blizzbot. Blizzbot is a term I coined for a WoW influencer who's drunk on fandom, regurgitates WoWhead news without adding any perspective or personality. That's a Blizzbot. They are the choir, Blizzard is the preacher, and any form of criticism is nothing less than blasphemy. From the start of BFA up until about a month or two ago, Bellular consistently proved me wrong. And now, well, the pendulum has swung in the complete opposite direction. Equally as useless as a Blizzbot, and with just reckless abandon, Bellular regularly overdoses on X-Lax and dumps on the WoW devs over and over and over. And just when you think it's over, he does it again. There's literally, and I'm not saying this figuratively, literally no end in sight. Now, I've isolated one of the many recent Bellular Why I Hate WoW and Maybe You Should Too videos. And in the interest of time, I broke this rebuttal into 2 parts and edited out several clips where I'd like to offer a different perspective, a more objective and fair perspective. Sometimes I do realize edited clips lose their original context, which is why I linked the original Bellular video in the description.
There is the feeling that our time is not respected with World of Warcraft. And it's obvious. Between random conduit upgrades, brutally slow anima gains, and the entire renown system, which of course is them trying to turn obvious time gating, most games don't do, into some sort of system, even though we can all completely transparently see through what the renown bar actually is. Tell me, from a first principles perspective, why is the narrative content handed out to us piecemeal 20 minutes a week?
It's entirely possible Bellular is asking a rhetorical question here, but I honestly do not believe he is. Once again, the simplest explanation must be true. Blizzard is dead focused on delivering gated content and time sync content. Since WoD, the same exact question keeps dredging up, and the correct answer just somehow eludes everybody, eludes all the hardcore fans, eludes all the WoW prognosticators every single time. WoW is a grind. Always has been a grind, always will be a grind. Blizzard purposely tosses hurdles and obstacles in front of players to instigate microtransactions and keep a player invested in the game in order to create next week's or next month's MAU. WoW has always been riddled with time sync content. This is nothing new. And this is probably my number one complaint with Bellular. He's complaining and criticizing things that have always been in the game. He just realized they exist right now. Not enough quests during vanilla WoW, player needed to farm mobs for hours to gain experience to move to the next zone, whether it's grinding reagents for abilities, grinding reputation for a reward, grinding gear for upgrades, grinding mats, grinding for a legendary, grinding for X-Mogs, grinding for gold, and how could we possibly leave out grinding artifact power or anime? And guess what, folks? WoW isn't the one and only MMO with a grind. All of them, in one way or another, have a grind. Sure, the grind in WoW could be, and quite frankly should be, more engaging and more rewarding. A strong counter argument could be made that the grind didn't exist during vanilla, BC, or Wrath of the Lich King. But I assure you, it most definitely did exist. The main difference between now and then, the players didn't care about the grind back then because they were engaged and having fun. And now, they're really not.
What if players don't like our game? Force them to play it for rewards. That is the Blizzard way. Torghast. I mean, it's what's going on here. It's what went on with Torghast. Soul Ash is why Torghast cannot be good.
This is an incredibly dumb statement. There aren't many people who play a game they don't like for rewards. People do play a game they like for a reward, that's true. Shadowlands PvP is the perfect example. I mean, during Legion as well as BFA, I joked with Battle.net friends about there only being 4 rated BG groups in Looking for Group, 2 of which were carries for gold. 1 was looking for 2.4 XP for a YOLO for no CR, and the final one happened to be a legit group. In Shadowlands, Blizzard bumped up the rewards for RBGs and attached rating to PvP progression. And suddenly, all of a sudden, tons of groups are listed. There are 25 to 35 groups listed at any given time. Now, maybe if there was something transitory about rewards in WoW or any other MMO, people would play a game that they don't like, but there's nothing transitory. Defeating Sylvanas on Heroic isn't going to help your resume. Your boss isn't going to give you a raise, your teacher isn't going to give you an A+, and defeating a few mythic level bosses isn't going to make the majority of women swoon. Matter of fact, it might actually scare them. Players may be forced to do something they don't enjoy in game for a necessary currency. Maybe that's the point that Belluar's trying to get across, but he wasn't explicit here. And I can agree with that. But this is nothing new either. PvPers have been forced into raiding, and raiders have been forced into PvP every now and then. This is a lesson Blizzard still hasn't learned. Don't do that. Doesn't matter, they still do it. Now, I happen to be a fan of Torghast, but not as much of a fan after the nerf. Now, I understand part of Belluar's point here. Belluar doesn't want to be forced to do Torghast 237 times for Soul Ash, and in theory, I can agree. Why can't players, this is a very interesting question, and a very legitimate question. Why can't players receive a small amount of Soul Ash for world quests, or battlegrounds, or Mythic Plus dungeons, or from doing whatever in the MOA? Why can't players accumulate a necessary currency doing something they enjoy, rather than be forced to do something they kind of find mediocre at best?
And possibly the most glass-shattering thought, and I think the thing's not discussed enough, the general lack of content in WoW. There is very little to do in World of Warcraft that is not part of the 3 pillars of Mythic Plus, raiding, and PvP. Almost every other type of content has clearly been left by the wayside, and all the rewards are largely locked behind huge world quest grinds instead.
Whenever you begin with the phrase "aside from," generally speaking, you're up to something very sketchy. It's like asking Mary Todd Lincoln, aside from your beloved husband Abraham getting shot in the head and killed instantly, did you enjoy the play Our American Cousin? Do you think they should make Our American Cousin into a movie? The phrase "aside from" begins the editing process in any open discussion. Let me give you a few ideas here. Aside from the absence of PvP, Final Fantasy XIV is a good MMO. Aside from the lack of an M plus community for M plus dungeons, ESO is a good MMO. Aside from the lack of a vibrant raid community, Guild Wars 2 is a good MMO. WoW does need more story, more lore. Matter of fact, that's where Blizzard usually, in the past, we're talking prior to MOP, succeeded. I mean, probably prior to Cataclysm. Cutscenes in WoW serve as bookmarks in the game where Blizzard achieved their most success. From my own experience, I've noticed whenever I criticize the lore or make fun of the lore, I get eviscerated in the comments. I can criticize PvP, Mythic Plus, raiding, pet battles, whatever I want. I could make fun of it. But whenever I start attacking WoW lore, it's considered blasphemy. People play WoW for many different reasons, as they might play any given MMO for many different reasons. I do believe the majority of them play for the lore. So I ask you guys the question, who is the largest YouTube content creator of WoW? At the time of production of this video, Nobel is the correct answer. What kind of videos does Nobel upload? You got it, lore. And to be truthful, I'd estimate a solid 30 to 50% of Belluar's videos pertain to WoW lore as well.
Then you start to think about why there is so little content in World of Warcraft. Wasted development time. Case in point, Covenants. They have clearly done more harm than good. Right? I mean, clearly. I think as far as the community is concerned anyway. But think about it this way. You know, between the developers making 4 abilities per class, but people only ever getting to use 1 ability. Them splitting the 9.0 story content across 4 alts. In a way that I think didn't really work that well.
As a content creator on YouTube, I can honestly say I've wasted valuable production time on videos that I didn't upload or I just changed way too much. It's the nature of the beast, and Belluar knows this, and the same can be said about developing a game or developing some kind of song or developing some kind of movie. Production time is often wasted, and here's a perfect example of this. I would say about 90% of the transmog videos that I upload, which I'm certainly not uploading for the good of the channel or to get views, because I do it because I love it. I do it because it's a creative process. I like the production value that I put forth in those transmog videos. And sometimes when I'm putting together a set, I can't find a belt, or I can't find a headpiece, or I can't find a good weapon, or I can't find the right boots. And meanwhile, I spent about 15-20 minutes trying to put together something, and now I end up abandoning it because I can't find a belt or a headpiece or a weapon. It happens a lot. And that's a perfect example of wasting production time. It happens whenever you're producing anything creative. So surprise, surprise, once again, I disagree with Belluar. Covenants are not much different than Suramar. I'll be the first to admit, yes, Suramar offered a better storyline and more depth, and the WoW community, for the most part, liked Suramar. Even Ian Has a Clueless said he liked Suramar, he wanted to do more of it. I was very surprised we didn't see more of that kind of content in BFA. While the quantity of the Covenants is evident, I can accept the argument that the quality isn't quite there. Yes, Blizzard could have done a much better job with the Covenant stories by offering more than 2 or 3 heroes / villains from WoW's past in each one, as well as more cutscenes. Maybe they'll do that going forward in patch 9.2 or 9.3, if there is one. The story can easily be stretched way too thin, and this is often done by offering way too many installments over a period of time. Here's a perfect example. The Hobbit. Both The Hobbit and Lord of the Ring were delivered in 3 parts, 3 different movies for each series. Lord of the Rings, unquestionably epic. The Hobbit felt like it was 1 or 2 movies stretched out into 3 movies. And why do you do that? Why do you suppose somebody would take that kind of content and stretch it out into something it really shouldn't be? And the answer is obvious. It's money. On some level, I do agree with Belluar. The Covenants aren't great, but they certainly don't suck either.
I mean, there are so many legendaries, conduits, and soulbinds, but players actually use very few. Was it worth making all of that? Did all of that iteration, time, and design actually translate into players making more meaningful choices? A meaningful choice may have existed on paper, but if it's not one that players actually took up, then it doesn't exist. And just because it exists on paper, well, that doesn't mean anything actually.
I like having choices, even if they're more or less meaningless. To a large extent, character customization and transmogs are meaningless choices. They don't affect your performance, yet players want more choices in that part of the game. In a positive way, they do affect the overall fantasy of your character. When you consider the RP and the fantasy aspects of an MMO, some so-called meaningless choices really aren't so meaningless. The race you choose, the talents, the covenant, the gear stats all matter in various situations. As far as talents go, there are a few tiers for a couple of specs and classes where the scale of preference heavily tilts 85-95% to one talent. But that's more so the exception than the norm. The fact is, choices are a huge reason why people play an MMO. I touched on this before, earlier in a video. Players play MMOs for different reasons. The lore, they're looking to stack achievements, they want to overcome challenges, and of course there's social reasons. All the aforementioned, in one way or another, fall under the umbrella of escapism. No choice equals no consequence, and no consequence equals lack of depth in game. Here's the perfect example of this. Prior to the Venthyr Hunter ability getting buffed, I switched my Hunter from Kyrian to Venthyr. And this was loaded with pros and cons. The pros, higher single target damage, more non-physical damage, and greater mobility, which you get from the soulbinds adding a speed boost or a disorient. Now the cons, less utility and fun, because let's face it, the Kyrian ability for hunters is a lot of fun shooting people through walls, less multi-target damage, and the survivability drops because there's no more health potion.
Remember how awesome the concept of time walking was? Think about what it's been reduced to. I mean, come on, time walking is lazily scaled, it's often broken, but it's obviously got so much potential. WoW's turning 17 years old this year, but we're still stuck playing only Shadowlands, instead of, actually having proper ways to engage with the game's whole history and body of content. It's such a shame.
Because I have absolutely no respect for my own time, I have 11 level 60s, and at least 3 times that number at level 45 or higher. The idea of doing time warp dungeons I've already done over 50 times, not for a single second, ever appealed to me. So I disagree with Belluar on time walking dungeons. There is no right or wrong here. It all comes down to taste and or preference. Sometimes vanilla wins, other times there are chocolate lovers who prevail, and of course Strawberry says I'm here too. I do like visiting familiar places in WoW, and doing so during a different time period. The zones in WoD come to mind, one of the more positive things about one of the worst X-Packs Blizzard ever created, the zones in Warlords of Draenor the Fun. And I really do love the work Blizzard did with the digital upgrades of both Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin. I thought the old school WoW classic dungeons in their glorious original form would have been great candidates for both time walking and digital upgrades. It would have been a win-win across the board for everyone involved, especially Blizzard, because 3 to 4 classic WoW dungeons added to the time walking queue and could serve as a bridge or a conduit, no pun intended, for WoW classic players to give retail and Shadowlands a shot. They could do the same with the Burning Crusade classic dungeons. It would be a great idea too. Whenever I judge the merits of a new system or content in WoW, I do the best I most possibly can to entertain 3 different perspectives. I ask 3 different questions. Is this good for the game's future as a whole? Is this good for the players? And is this good for Blizzard? Yes, believe it or not, I do consider if something is good for Blizzard, because let's face reality here. If there is absolutely no benefit to Blizzard, how likely are they going to create something, upgrade something, or fix something?
It might keep the current players, but it's not going to grab new people, or keep those dissatisfied from leaving. There's no end in sight. And if there is, they should tell us how they have a plan to get there, so that we can understand WoW, have faith in it overall as a project. Now, we could go into why it's like this, between management concerns at Activision Blizzard, the brain drain going on at the company, and the age of Blizzard as an entity. But none of that is important today. All that is important is that Blizzard needs to take a step back and reevaluate.
Lack of player retention at WoW has been an issue since BOP, arguably even since Kata. This is absolutely nothing new. Legion is perhaps the only exception where there hasn't been a huge amount of attrition. So the big question is, what did Legion do right? And this is a question that I've been seeing pop up on the MMO Champion forums, as well as the official forums, and plenty. I've been seeing this question pop up. So the answer to the question, what did Legion do right? Strong class ID with order halls, something I'm very surprised we didn't see more of in BFA or even Shadowlands. The whole artifact, the tree, the appearances, the abilities, just a great idea. Class mounts, legendaries, the mage tower, and just tons of content. Plus an engaging story with an all-star cast from WoW lore. And the story had a lot of depth. Every WoW X-Pack, subs rise to 7 to 10 million at the start. And then there's either a very slow, drawn-out drop or a free fall of 3 to 4 million subs. Legion, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the lone exception. I believe most of us, whether with our guilds or BattleNet friends, have experienced the effects of this inevitable sub drop-off. I certainly have. I have a large group of friends I've known since Kata who've quit WoW 3 to 4 months into every single X-Pack, including Legion. And they're not leaving for personal reasons, whether it's something with their family or their health or their job. They're leaving for many of the consistent concerns the average WoW player experiences in one way or another every single X-Pack. Even content creators like myself and Bellular see a drop-off in watch time and views when tons of players exit WoW, let alone whenever there's this massive 7-month, 10-month content drought. And here's a point absolutely no one has touched upon, and it's a very concerning fact. The 3 to 5 million drop-off in subs in 4 out of the last 5 X-Packs is now the majority. Each time the flat line of WoW subs throughout the duration of the new X-Pack drops lower and lower and lower. And instead of picking up the slack or the drop-off by delivering better retail content, Blizzard is 100% focused on WoW Classic, Burning Crusade Classic, and you know what the reason is for that? You got it. Monthly active users. That's what Blizzard is looking for, regardless of what Blizzard game you play.
It is time for Blizzard to do what Square Enix did back in 2010, to be honest with themselves about their game and what their decisions are doing to their reputation, and to treat this like the existential company-wide emergency that it absolutely is. Because if not, they're going to be due for a wake-up call in a few years.
While Bellular was busy evangelizing every WoW X-Pack prior to BFA, I've said many times in many different videos, Blizzard is long overdue for a wake-up call. If Blizzard was an overdue library book, for those of you who don't know, libraries are community buildings that house tons and tons of books that nobody really wants to read, that you have to take out usually for school, and if you don't return it by a specific date, you're charged 25 cents per day as a late fee. So if Blizzard was an overdue library book and they were charged a late fee, they'd owe literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet somehow Blizzard remains afloat. Retail WoW is definitely not growing. It's been mired in a status quo since Kata. They've been consistently addressing repetitive issues with short-term solutions, while they completely don't even entertain, let alone they completely avoid long-term solutions. 100% I agree with Bellular on this point. As a content creator focused on WoW, I am concerned about WoW's future, and I am certain Bellular is concerned too. The only difference between Bellular and myself is that Bellular is absolutely ridiculously and insanely late for this particular party. So late, as a matter of fact, we should all thank Bellular for predicting last year's Super Bowl winner with incredible accuracy. Make no mistake, Blizzard has been addressing ongoing issues with retail WoW, but not in a manner that's good for WoW's future or even good for the players. Hearthstone, HOTS, Overwatch picked up the slack during MOP and somewhat during WoD. The promise of Legion restored faith during WoD, and Legion unquestionably proved to be a very, very successful XPAC. WoW Classic picked up the slack during BFA, and during Shadowlands, guess who's hanging out, waiting on deck? Yes, you got it. Burning Crusade Classic is picking up the slack in Shadowlands. Next XPAC, whatever it is, Wrath of the Lich King will be there to pick up the slack once again. This is not a coincidence. This is absolutely intended. These are not long-term solutions. Eventually, the buzz and the fumes of goodwill are going to run out, and then maybe we'll finally see Blizzard bring out the big guns. A WoW 2 with an upgraded game engine.
I am playing WoW for 9.1, obviously. But right now, I can do what FF's got for me. Or in WoW, I can just go into the same treadmill again. Do boring world quests. No. Outside of that most top-end content, Blizzard stuff is not up to snuff. WoW is a very small game. It's basically raiding PvP and dungeons.
Yeah, my needle pins to the far right as far as how dumb this statement is. WoW is a small game. This is like calling the United States a small country. Sure, if you never leave New Jersey, the United States might appear to be very small. Since 2004, roughly 110 to 120 million people gave WoW a shot with at least a free trial. That means 1 in 3 people in a small country like the United States gave WoW a shot over the last 17 years. Now, I'm not going to compare that number to Final Fantasy XIV because WoW's been around for almost 10 years longer. Activision Blizzard earns $1.2 billion in microtransactions per quarter. That's a $4.8 billion ticket per year. That's more than half their total revenue. At 2.5 million subs, which, by the way, is a very low-end number, a conservative number, you times that by 180 per year in monthly sub fees, not including WoW Classic or BC Classic, Blizzard earns $450 million in monthly subs per year. Shadowlands initially sold 3.7 million copies. Over time, more players are going to step in and buy the new X-Pack, and you figured that number might be 20%, which once again is an extraordinary low-end figure. That translates to roughly 260 million in sales. But you got to divide that number by 2 because there's only one new X-Pack every 2 years. Here's how these numbers play out. 480 million in microtransactions, 450 million in monthly subs, and 130 million in box sales. For lack of a better word, that's just buying the new game. So WoW earns, with absolutely conservative math, $1 billion per year, which isn't bad for a small game. For those of you who've listened to this rebuttal up and until now, I salute you, and I extend my sincerest thanks. Your attentiveness means one of 2 things, or maybe both. 1, somewhere in the video I made a little bit of sense. 2, you're concerned about WoW's future much in the same way I am, and believe it or not, Bellular truly is. I understand if you put your thoughts out there, you're essentially hanging out your laundry to dry. And whenever you do that, people are going to question and even ridicule your taste in wardrobe. If there's one principle I'm willing to go to the mattresses to defend, it's free speech. Bellular can overdose on X-Lax, dump on WoW, and evangelize Final Fantasy XIV in another 52 videos. I don't care. What do I know? Maybe Bellular truly needs to upload 72 more why WoW really, really, really sucks videos. Maybe the creative process of dumping on WoW is therapeutic for Bellular. I have absolutely no problem with that. Do whatever you need to bring out the sun on a cloudy day, or in Bellular's case, vice versa. Here's where I do have a little bit of a problem. Bellular is not dumping on WoW on his main channel. Oh, no. That would be a very bad idea. He's doing it on his second channel. A good question would be why? The reason that I can only see is Bellular can upset hardcore WoW fans who tune in to his channel, to his main channel, for WoW gaming news and WoW lore, because they support him through Patreon. Can't disturb that money flow. So essentially here, Bellular is being disingenuous for the sake of money, which is exactly what he criticizes Blizzard for doing. That's called irony, folks. I am certain Bellular will argue Blizzard doesn't know this, or can't understand that, or can't see the forest from the trees, blah, 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 blah. No. They know exactly what they're doing. They're putting money over fun and the good of the game. And Bellular is doing the same exact thing. Blizzard's dire need for a wake-up call is where I strongly agree with Bellular. They need to stop slam dunking the snooze button, stop dreaming about the glory days of Wrath of the Lich King, wake up, brew a pot of coffee or two, pull an all-nighter, and deliver their loyal fans true greatness once again. Make no mistake, Blizzard is capable of creating something truly great, much in the same way they did with Wrath of the Lich King and Legion. And the same exact thing can be said about Bellular and Company. Throughout BFA, Bellular consistently uploaded informative, fair, objective videos with a high production value, all of which pretty much criticize World of Warcraft. Where the hell is that version of Bellular hiding now? I'd really like to know, because I'm 100% confident I could win a hide-and-go-seek world championship with Bellular's current hiding spot. Bellular is a highly influential WoW content creator, the kind of influence that can implement change. What I fail to understand is why people like Bellular don't rally the masses, create a detailed petition of legitimate grievances, and challenge Blizzard to greatness. Hey, guess what? That same exact approach worked a few years ago and helped make WoW Classic a reality. But no, Bellular prefers to bitch and complain about things in WoW that have been in the game in one form or another since the first day he downloaded World of Warcraft. Yes, over the years, WoW did change, but I strongly believe Bellular's perspective changed a lot more. When you like something or someone, you're gonna find reasons why you like it. And when you don't, the opposite is true as well. It's human nature. I'm not immune. You're not immune. No one's immune. Maybe the underlying truth here is Bellular is bored with WoW, and he's perfectly willing to toss out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe he grew bigger than WoW. After all, he does believe World of Warcraft is a small game produced by a small company. Maybe the game doesn't suit his purpose anymore. Maybe he's insanely frustrated with Blizzard. That's something I can understand. You know, an overdose of empty promises from Blizzard, X-Pack after X-Pack after X-Pack, can easily have that kind of effect on any given fan. Whatever the truth may be, I can understand and respect all the aforementioned possibilities and even more. I really do understand it. But when you shoot your mouth off without doing minimal research, and you've got a team of people to delegate that kind of work to, I have a big problem with that. When you're not fair with Blizzard or the WoW community, both of whom in an indirect way help make you what you are today in a small way, I have a big problem with that. When your biases shine so goddamn bright, I gotta wear shades just to listen to your voice, I got another problem with that. And when in the recent past, you uploaded tons of videos demonstrating an abundance of research, fairness, objectivity, and then suddenly you betray that, I can't help but push aside my own personal frustrations towards Blizzard and present you with a challenge for greatness again. Thank you for watching. If you're going to leave a like on a video, leave it on the next video of mine that you do watch. It helps out the channel. It's all I ask, and I'll leave you with a final thought. Whatever it is by you, whether it's morning or it's afternoon or it's night, make your day epic.